I'm Sean Zimunya from Winterton Consulting, and it's my singular honor to be in front of you today. I want to predicate this discussion by just stating that the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, in collaboration with the Human Sciences Research Council, did a survey in 2023, and they noted that 51% of South Africans, only 51% of South Africans were financially literate. Over and above that, they noted that only just a third of South Africans are saving for their retirement. So it doesn't mean that because we're sitting here and we're probably the smartest, you guys are probably the smartest people in the country, isn't it? Would you say that, or is that debatable? Yes, no? Yes, right? But it doesn't mean that we are immune to not understanding how money works. And part of the reason why money is complicated is smart people don't necessarily make dumb decisions. They just make human decisions because it's human to make certain decisions. We all operate from a principle of emotions sometimes, where rationality actually flies out of the window. And so I want you to just think about it for a second. Have you ever made a financial decision that didn't make sense on paper, but it felt absolutely right in the moment? Have we? I saw a couple of ladies. I saw someone talking about your shopping, etc. How many shoes are in your closet that you have not worn, right? And yet, later on after this session, you're going to buy even some more. It's not just the ladies, though. Gents. How many bottles of whiskey are you collecting? How many watches are you collecting? The one thing that my mother always says to me is that everyone has their thing. I'm yet to figure out what my thing is. I think I'm on the right track. But I would want to know from you guys. Sir, if you will, what is your thing? The one thing that you say, listen, I don't mind, I will spend money on it, I will regret later. What is your one thing? And I'm picking on you because you're sitting in front. I'll go to the naughty corner later on. Food. Okay, so he says his one thing is food. I want to engage the photographer as well. So what is your one thing, the one thing you spend money on? Food as well. Okay, so you guys can form a brotherhood of sorts. I actually think I found my one thing. My one thing is experiences. I don't mind paying for experiences. So whether it's going to the Monaco Grand Prix to watch a Formula One race, or it's flying out to Cape Town for some dope concert, I don't mind doing that. Of course, the next morning I'm thinking twice about how much I spent, but at least I had the experience. So it's important for us to understand why, even as intelligent people, we make some of the decisions that we make. Now, it's important for us to understand this. Money is tied to our identities as people. So we'll look at how financial decisions reflect who we are and who we want to become. Then we'll look at money and emotion, the powerful feelings that drive spending, that actually goes beyond logic itself. And then we'll also then look at money and cognition, the mental traps that are set for us without us realizing, and how our brightest minds sometimes don't actually function when it comes to money, when we see dollar signs, when we see rands, etc. Then we'll look at some practical tools that we can use, some actionable strategies for us to make better financial decisions and to become a lot more financially self-aware. Those of you with children here, how many of you are having money conversations with your children? Apart from saying, I don't have money. Because that's not a conversation, that's a declaration, right? Are there any of us who are having, okay, I see a couple of hands up. My hope would be you become what we didn't have, because I think a lot of our parents didn't actually sit us down and talk to us about money. I think at most you would have gotten, money doesn't grow on trees. That's one statement you would have gotten. Another statement you would have gotten would probably be, you must save. But they didn't tell us how to save. They didn't tell us about investing. I doubt many of them spoke to us about emergency funds, about retirement annuities, etc. So we need to do better. I'm cognizant of the fact that there's a lot more financial information that's out there, so we can actually become a lot more literate than the people of old. But of course, we need to suss out that information, make sure that it's valid. So let's look at the first thing, money as an identity. Money isn't just currency, that we need to understand. It goes deeper than that. It's also identity, it's our status, but it's also meaning that's wrapped around in dollar signs or in rands, whatever currency we're speaking of. And so every single purchase that you go and make tells a story about who you are or who you aspire to be. Right now, the car that you drive, what decision, what factors did you look at before you made the decision to buy that particular car? Whether it's the latest Chinese model or it's a German car or German machines as they call them. There are certain factors that would have gone with that. Some of you are in leadership positions, and one of the decisions was, I can't be seen to be driving no offense to Renault Kwids, if there's anyone who drives one, I can't be seen to be driving a Renault Kwid when my staff is driving machines. And I've actually had people in leadership positions say that. Nah. So it's a status symbol as well. And this is perhaps why sometimes we end up making the decisions that we make. So I want you to remember the next time you go into a mall, money is not just currency, it's your identity. It speaks to status, it's a status symbol, and every single purchase you're making is reflective of either who you are or who you're trying to become. Okay. Case study, the earned it purchase. So we have Dr. Sarah Ngobeni, who had driven a very reliable Honda for many, many years, 8 years to be precise. But the day she was appointed permanently in that particular university, which we shall not name, she walked into a BMW dealership and bought a car that is actually more than her annual research budget. We'll speak about budgets later on, research budgets later on, and how they're never sufficient. No. The question then becomes, was it rational? And many of us would argue, well, perhaps not. But, well, was it meaningful? Perhaps. Why? Because she's thanking herself perhaps for that permanent appointment. My mother has a whole concept that she taught me when I started working. She calls it thanking the body that works. So she says to me, each and every single month, after you get paid, before you pay bills, before you worry about everything else, do one thing for yourself. So when the concept of self-care got introduced to us, she actually said to me, yeah, edit there, count it as self-care. Do one thing for yourself. I struggle with that because I think I suffer from the savior complex, so I'm already thinking who needs help with what. I'm still to find my one thing that I do for myself. I think actually there's a little bit of book buying. I think that's a small little thing I do for myself. So I hope you all have your one thing that you do for yourself. So in this concept, in this case study rather, we could make the argument that for Dr. Ngobeni, this was essentially the one thing she was doing for herself. That car isn't just then a mode of transportation. It's also validation. You've worked hard, you've pushed to get to where you are, and so you deserve this particular one thing. Now, the question then becomes, is it always worth it though? And I want to ask, because this is supposed to be a conversation, how many of us in the last 2 years made financial decisions that we're currently regretting? Can I see by a raise of hands? All of you are financially savvy here. I see a hand up. The rest of you are sorted. Wait, am I speaking to billionaires? I need to make sure I'm in the right room. I may be. The rest of you are sorted. You are financially astute. You've not made any decisions you're regretting. We did. We just don't want to. Okay. Those of you that raised your hands, thank you for your honesty. Now, what's the second component? Money and emotions. A lot of the things that we do are driven by emotions. And so the sad part is when the emotional brain takes over, the rational brain shuts down. I'm going to repeat that. I don't have a mic, so I can't drop the mic. But I'm going to repeat that so that it sinks. When the emotional brain takes over, then the rational brain shuts down. And so when this happens in terms of purchases, then it gets difficult for us to make logical financial decisions. And we do our best then to try and use our heads to justify why we did what we did. There's a quote there from Dave Ramsey who says, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." And I'm going to, just an aside, the ladies in the room, do ladies dress for other ladies or do they dress for everyone else? A lot of the times, well, some would say we'll dress for ourselves, but a lot of the times, my personal observation, and I've not conducted research, so you can't take me to court for it, but my personal observation, I think ladies dress for other ladies. There is almost this unspoken competition of sorts. Same thing with why mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law, you know that dynamic? A little bit tricky there. I know you're thinking of your mother-in-law now. Okay. So a lot of the times then, this is what happens. When the emotional side of the brain takes over, this is where this quote becomes true. We're spending money we don't have to impress people that we don't even like. And I would caution that perhaps we need to think and pause a little bit. Perhaps not even think, just pause a little bit. When you come into a huge chunk of money, by whatever means, which I hope are legal, because we don't want you at any commission, I would hope that we pause to think for a second. What do I want to do with this money? And whatever it is that I'm thinking of doing with this money, after 2 months, after 3 months, after a year, am I not going to be regretting whatever decision I'm about to make? And all of this happens because the emotional side of us creates this sense of urgency. Have you ever seen how some people struggle to sleep when they get paid? Perhaps this is not the right, the right age group, right? But the second they get paid, then it's almost like everything becomes itchy. The bed becomes itchy. They don't want to be in the office anymore. Same thing with what happens on payday. In the varsities and the colleges that we come from, how many of us stay for the full work day? How many of us mysteriously have something to go and take care of? Right? So this is that part I'm referring to. So emotions then create this sense of, it's a false sense of agency actually, and it overrides your rational analysis. So you may have a PhD, you may even be an accountant by profession. That stops working the second that the emotional brain takes over. And so within 10, these, what are supposed to be simple transactions, they become complex psychological events. And this is why we need to understand our money personalities. Are there single people in the room? Single and searching? Okay, I don't mean those who are married but sometimes available. I mean single people. So single people, you may want to add to your list of, your checklist rather, you may want to add understanding your potential partner's money personality. So is this person a spender? Are they a saver? What are they, right? Because what we know from research is that 45% of marriages in South Africa end in divorce before 10 years, and one of the reasons is financial incompatibility there, where the one party then feels, but I'm doing all the saving, this one is just spending, like a baddie, as the youngins would say. Okay. And then to the men, are there single men in the house? I didn't see a single hand raised. Okay, so you may want to date within your class, right? Let me explain that. If the lady wants a weave that costs 15,000 rand, she's not a gold digger. That's her standard. So your job then is to find someone within your particular standard, right? Because this whole notion of gold digging, sometimes there's really no gold to speak of, but we accuse people of being gold diggers, no? Okay. So emotional triggers in financial behavior, what does that look like? Sometimes there's fear, which leads to holding cash. That's why I said understand your partner's money personality. If they're the kind of person who is so thrifty that they are hoarding cash, they're not necessarily investing it, or perhaps they're actually even over-saving such that there is no life within the household, then you may be worried about that and you may want to do something about that. These are the type of people who may even avoid investment opportunities because they just want to see their bank accounts growing, right? But that doesn't always help because you must actually get to a point where you make your money work for you. And that includes then investing and being investment savvy. So if you're just hoarding the cash, that's not really going to help. The quality of life also sometimes actually suffers because of the degree to which this person is saving. Okay. We want savers, but yeah, it shouldn't. A little bit of too much is not a good thing. Or rather, too much of anything is not a good thing, isn't it? Then we have anger, where something happens and then it triggers you and then you decide, okay, I actually have a case of a client of mine, suspected that the husband was cheating, took their joint bank account card, and then went and bought 4,000 Rand worth of shoes. Well, firstly, she was wrong because he wasn't cheating. It was some slight misunderstanding. But also, do you see the motivation there? The idea was, I'm going to punish him by spending 4,000 Rand on a pair of shoes. This is somebody that would typically not buy shoes over 1,000 Rand, right? So sometimes that anger then results in what we call revenge spending and financial retaliation or even spite purchases where I just want to spite you, so I'm going to make this purchase. I don't need it, but because I'm mad at you, then I'm going to do this. Then we have joy, where joy also triggers these splurges if we're not careful. And so this is why for me, each time I get any kind of money, I usually give it a day or two before I make the decision with regards to what am I doing with it. A lot of the times already I've allocated it, but I don't want to spend because I'm joyful. So you get a promotion, then you decide, I've actually had people saying this, I just got promoted, so I need to empty my bank account so that the new salary comes in cleanly. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Yeah, I don't want to mix old money and new money. We laugh, but these are things that are happening now. Okay, so that's joy. And then there is guilt as well. And I think for many of us, this gets to us. You get that phone call from a parent or from a sibling or from a cousin. They already know your payday. Then they start telling you, yeah, I don't have enough food. The stories start, right? Or maybe it's a friend, that manipulative friend that you have. And sometimes also because you lack boundaries, you tell them when you're getting bonuses. So they know you're loaded. And then the text comes, listen, I need a little bit of help. And then they guilt trip you into spending money. So we may end up overgiving or actually what we call compensatory spending. This applies a lot of the times to parents that sometimes think money makes up for their absence in the home. So, if you'll allow me to digress. People go where their needs are met. What does this mean? If I am not meeting my partner's or my child's needs, they will go where their needs are met. Whatever that looks like. Whether it's my partner going to Jabu or Peter or Petros, I don't know. Or maybe it's them picking up a habit of sorts. They get into gambling or they start drinking more. If it's children, if I'm not paying particular attention to my child, again, because people go where their needs are met, his needs for attention might be met by Joe, who's at the street corner selling drugs. And this is where people always ask, but how is it that the father is so accomplished, the mother is doing well, but the child is doing drugs? Sometimes it's because people go where their needs are met. So that's the aspect of compensatory spending, where you then think to yourself, if I buy the child the latest iPhone or the PS5 or whatsoever, then they're going to be happy with me. That means I'm a great mother or I'm a great dad. So this is not to bash your parenting. I'm just saying parenting takes a little bit more than the money that you spend. It includes you actually needing to spend quality time with these children and getting to know them as individuals and doing your best to shape the characters that they will have in adult life. Okay. Then we also have stress, and I've had this, and I've been privileged enough right now, just waiting for graduation, so just completed a whole PhD, but I'm not a doctor yet. I haven't graduated. And in all my studying of psychology, I have not found retail therapy to be a part of the therapy methods that we use. It is not there. I looked for it everywhere. Read many books. So all it is really is it's your stress, which is just fueling your particular therapy. And I call it therapy in quotes because it's actually not really therapy. You buying a pair of shoes that you don't really need. Perhaps at that time it makes you feel good. But down the line, there will be some regret of sorts, isn't it? So retail therapy, that's a fallacy, ladies and gents. It doesn't really exist. It's just impulsive buying. Sometimes it's comfort purchases as well. Now, I'm not saying don't do it. I mean, we need our economy to grow. So please, go spend the money. I'm just saying it's not therapy. Just putting it out there. And then we come to money and cognition. And Dan Ariely has a lovely quote, "We are not rational beings. We are predictably irrational." Do you guys agree with that assertion? We're not rational beings, we're predictably irrational as a people. Do you agree with that? If you look at how much you spent last week, I think you should be agreeing with this quote. No? So what is it with regards to this? Even the most brilliant of minds fall into what we call cognitive traps. So how it works is that our brains are designed for survival in small tribes. So we struggle with abstract concepts a lot of the times, like compound interest. It also actually just sounds boring, isn't it? Compound interest, probability, all these Lani financial terms that we hear. And so because of that, we then take mental shortcuts for ourselves. We don't want to deal with the drama, so let's find a mental shortcut that helps us to just simply navigate our everyday life without having to overthink. For example, if we were to say, let's calculate the opportunity cost of you being here today, I'm pretty sure not many people would be willing to do that. It just sounds boring. But also, if we say, let's calculate how much you're gaining by sitting in this session, again, we don't want to think about such abstract things. We want simple things. Those mental shortcuts that we take sometimes become the traps that we fall into when it comes to money itself. Because we don't think to ourselves, well, isn't there a better way of me spending this money? Isn't there a way of me putting this money aside for something else? A lot of the times, impulsivity kicks in, we go and we spend. Okay. What are some of the common cognitive biases in finance? The first one is loss aversion. So we feel the pain of losing 1,000 rand, for example, twice as strongly as we feel the pleasure of gaining 1,000 rand. So many of us are not then willing to let go of bad financial situations. Say, for example, you were smart enough to start investing, but the stock that you're holding has been losing. If you'll allow me, ArcelorMittal, for example, we know it's likely to close down in the next couple of months. So let's say it's a stock that you've been holding. If you go and check the share price, obviously it has gone down a lot. But then, because of the mental shortcuts, we then decide, I don't want to worry about that. I'm just going to keep it. We'll see what happens. So we then fail to let go of stocks that are not making us money because we just don't want to invest in the thinking behind it, and we don't want to do the research behind it. So rather just take a shortcut. And then sometimes we avoid unnecessary risks that we must be taking. We simply just avoid them. For example, you're supposed to be saving and investing. I'll leave the saving aside. You're supposed to be investing for your retirement. How many of us are doing that? Don't raise your hand. We don't want you to be robbed. No? And then we also then have present bias, where we heavily discount future rewards in favor of immediate gratification. The one most singular thing that's destroying many of us is immediate gratification. The failure to delay gratification. The reason why a person goes and buys a car and accepts a balloon payment is because, number one, they actually don't afford the car. But they want it, and they want it now. So that failure to delay gratification is what lands us a lot of the times in some of the sticky financial situations we find ourselves in. I'll give an example. If you had a choice now to get 1,000 rand or wait for 6 months and get 2,500 rand, what would be your decision? 1,000. That, ladies and gents, is present bias in action. Someone is going to say, what if I'm dead in 6 months, right? For everything else, they are willing to wait. These are the type of people who tell a potential partner, you have to wait for 90 days. Then they don't think they might be dead in 90 days, right? But when it comes to decisions like this, they're making the decision, listen, I'm not going to wait 6 months. I want that money and I want it now. So that present bias is one of the cognitive biases in finance, which leads us into making poor financial decisions. A lot of the times also, we undersave for retirement. I told you that just about a third of South Africans are saving for their retirement. But the stats are actually scary if you look at the surveys done by Sanlam, where they're saying only around about 6% of South Africans are going to afford to retire. 6%. It's a scary thought, isn't it? And the reason why is because we tell ourselves, I'm going to still make more money, you know. Not many of us right now are potentially thinking of a loss of income. We're thinking we will always get paid. We work in an institution. Some people will even tell you, this institution has been in existence for 180 years. We're fine. Not knowing that things can go left. Nah. And then we have overconfidence, where we systematically overestimate our abilities and knowledge when it comes to money. So we convince ourselves we know what we're talking about, but in actual fact, do we really? I'll give an example. People who are into forex trading. How much of that industry do you actually know, or how much of that sector do you actually know? Or we just decide we're going to skip financial planning. Even as we sit here, how many of us actually have budgets that we stick to? 1. 2, how many of us are actually tracking our spending? Because sometimes the reason why you think there's a tokolosh that took your money is because you're not tracking your spending. And a lot of the time, sometimes you're making these small little purchases that do not break the bank, but when you look at them cumulatively, it's a lot of money. So let me issue a challenge. For the next month, from today going forward, let's say from tomorrow, today let's give you a pass. I need you to keep track of every single cent you're spending. If you're somebody that smokes and you buy a pack of cigarettes, write that down. I spent X amount of money on a pack of cigarettes. If it's alcohol, if it's lunch you're buying, and then reflect on that at the end of the month. How much money did you spend and on what did you spend it? I promise you, you might be shocked. Some of the things you're spending money on. Okay. And then we have anchoring, where we over-rely on the first piece of information that we encountered. We watch one TikTok reel and then we're like, got it. Now I understand finances. An example being home listing prices. Not many of us know that you can actually negotiate. Did you know that? That you could literally go from Bank A, which is offering you this particular bond at this rate, take it to Bank B, and then say, listen, this is what Bank A is offering. Can you better the offer? And they could actually improve the offer. Many of us take what we get the first time. And sometimes it may be because the agents are very convincing. Ma'am, you are the 30th person to view this house today. And the other guys are actually going to sign offers to purchase. So I would advise that you move with speed. It's all a trick, isn't it? Okay. If they had that much traffic, they wouldn't be pressuring you now, would they? Okay, so we need to be mindful of such things. Now, why do smart people fall even harder? Intelligence doesn't protect us from bias. So, in actual fact, sometimes it makes things markedly worse. Highly educated individuals sometimes actually exhibit a lot of overconfidence. You know how when we start speaking, we speak authoritatively, as though we know what we're talking about. And we believe that we extrapolate our expertise. So if I'm an expert in this one area, then I take it and then I start applying it everywhere. Which is why some of you are insufferable at those family gatherings. Because you're an expert in one area, now you'd make it seem like you're an expert in every area, and you're not giving other children a chance. Ne? So that's why they don't want you at those parties and those family gatherings sometimes. So that overconfidence is what gets us into trouble sometimes. Because then we convince ourselves we know what we're doing, and yet the actual truth is we're not very sure what we're doing. Sometimes we also then tend to rationalize, well, I bought the car because I really needed the transport, But did it have to be the most expensive car? Not really. Overconfidence bias, which we've spoken about. Sometimes it's analysis paralysis. We start looking at models. Just make the decision. Instead of doing that, you're coming up with models. Okay, which one makes sense? What decision should I go with? That time, it may be a time-sensitive decision, isn't it? Okay. Complexity bias as well, where we prefer all of these complicated solutions as opposed to simple ones. Sometimes the solution is simple. Stop buying that many watches and whiskey bottles and shoes. It's that simple. Okay? Simple. But we overcomplicate it because of the levels of intelligence. So remember, brains are not equal to bias immunity. You can still be biased whilst you are super smart. So some practical tools as we wrap up. What can we do? Number one, pause and reflect. Before major purchases, please wait 24 to about 48 hours. I told you I use that trick myself. Nah. And the question should be then, am I buying this item or is this item buying me? Because items can buy you, isn't it? Okay, so that's one. And then we also need values alignment, where we then sit and think to ourselves, what is my personal mission statement for money? In fact, I need some of you to ask yourself, what is my relationship with money? Chances are, on a psychological level, that particular relationship is shaped by the relationship that your parents had with money. If you grow up in a household where you're being told every day, we don't have money, chances are you're a major saver, you're very thrifty. Even when you must be letting loose a little bit, in your psyche, you're that person who's worried about not having enough. So values alignment. What are your values when it comes to money? What is your relationship with money? And how does this support your long-term goals? Where are you trying to go in terms of finances? It's also then important for us to do bias checklists. Am I sure that whatever decision framework I'm using when it comes to money, it accounts for the common cognitive traps that we spoke about earlier on? And we then also need accountability partners, people that keep you in check when it comes to money, where you're spending, what you're spending, and why you're spending. Are there people you trust to do that, to keep you in check? I'm a little bit worried. So how's about we do it this way? You give me your bank card, and then I manage it on your behalf. Can we do that? But only when you've received a bonus, not now. Okay. I'm not going to go into that, but perhaps you can take a picture of that and then do that later on. Just a mini exercise for financial self-discovery. Take 2 minutes to write down one money habit that you'd like to shift. Is it tied to your identity? Is it tied to your emotion or to cognition? So under identity, ask yourself then, does this particular habit reflect who I am or who I want to be? Under emotion, what feelings are driving my behavior of buying Gucci shoes every week? Okay. Cognition, what biases might be influencing this particular choice? The reason why this is important is once you understand the root cause of financial behavior, you are then able to make meaningful changes in your particular life in terms of finances. And most money habits also, we must understand that they serve as a certain psychological purpose. So when we identify what that purpose is, then we're able to actually change that particular habit, whatever it is. Okay, so keep that in mind, go and do that. My closing reflection, if you don't understand your psychology, you don't understand your money. Why? financial success isn't just about mathematical optimization. It goes deeper than that. It's also about psychological insight. Do I know who I am when I have money? Do I like who I am when I have money? Do I know who I am when I don't have money? And do I like who I am when I don't have money? Or do I become a different creature altogether? So start small. Just choose one little tool from today's sessions, everything that we shared today, and then be consistent with it. And I would advise that the first thing you start by doing is tracking your spending so that you have an idea where your money is actually going. Once you know where your money is going, then you can actually plug whatever holes that they are. Okay. I want to ask for comments, questions, contributions so that you win that 50,000 Rand we spoke of. Are there any comments, questions, contributions? Yeah, money is always tricky to talk about, no? Okay. If there are no questions, comments, there's one.
Hi. So I just wanted to find out from you, don't you think that retail therapy should be part of the...
Do I think that retail therapy?
Should be part of the therapy methods
No.
that currently exist?
No,
so
it shouldn't be, because a lot of the times when we engage in it, again, it's the emotional side that has taken over, right? However, I am willing to make a concession. If you are going to do something nice for yourself as a way of recovering from, let's say, a traumatic event or something that didn't go really well, I would then suggest that you do that, but do that in the company of your accountability partner. Remember we said you need an accountability partner? Rather do that in their presence, because at least you're not going to end up spending 50,000 Rand on one bottle of whiskey. Okay. So I don't hate retail therapy. I'm just putting it out there that it's not a form of therapy. Because you hear people say that all the time. I feel good when I buy a pair of shoes. Okay, good for you. I know we get some sense of fulfillment. It's not a bad thing. But we must be careful, especially if it leads us into financial problems. Yes?
Thank you. I just want to find out, do you really have to get a counseling when coming to money if you are not really using it very well?
Yes.
Because I think what I heard is that it can stress. Once you are stressed, you might even end up not really be able to work and do other things.
Yes.
But the second part is the issue of the accountability partner.
Yes.
Let's say everyone who's close to you is not really good with finances. How will you find the accountability partner? Okay.
Cool. So the first part, I absolutely think that yes, one should get counseling. I think the problem is that people problematize counseling or therapy. It isn't just about problems, it's also developmental in nature. So if I'm saying I don't really fully understand how to manage my money, or perhaps I realize that I make emotional decisions when it comes to money, then counseling comes in. If I don't really understand how to manage my money, then financial coaching can become a part of it, and then I benefit from that. So what I would then suggest is, if you are surrounded by people who are not really great at managing their own money and you want an accountability partner, you could do it in a number of ways. Either A, if your specific institution, and I hope they have a wellness company, a lot of the times they also provide financial coaches. That can become your accountability partner. Another option would be if you have a private account in one of these Lani banks, they have private bankers, that could become your accountability partner. So there are ways around these things. But it's important that if you feel that you have a deficit in terms of the skills that you need in terms of managing money, then get some help in that regard. Okay. We are way too smart to retire broke, isn't it, ladies and gents?